Our presenter will discuss this question. Please welcome Paul Böhm.
Oh, hi. Welcome to my presentation. I will start off quickly by introducing myself. So my name is Paul Böhm. I started off in the whole scene around here in 1998 when I founded a computer security group called TISO Security. We've been pretty active in doing exploit development, research, and stuff like that. And afterwards, I've been working as a security consultant for a while, but finally ending up doing other things like research in quantum cryptography and founding a local hackerspace in Vienna called the MetaLab. You've seen our telephone booth. The telephone booth actually is the MetaLab. The room to the right is just storage. So, after all the security stuff, I had a lot of experience in software development, in breaking software and developing software, when I found one particular problem especially interesting, the problem of sorting, of finding relevant information, not by automated methods, by using computers that learn or stuff like that, but by simply looking at which stuff are your friends interested in. So what I wanted to do back in 2003 could have been seen as something like Digalicious. But Dig wasn't around back then, Reddit wasn't around back then. But eventually I failed, and I realized I failed because I didn't have the right social environment. I didn't have anyone to teach me the ropes of how to start a startup, of how to run things, of which things to do, which things are just stupid, like spending more money than you need in many ways. You don't need big venture capital to actually start something. And I made a lot of mistakes. Eventually I failed. And throughout the last 3 years, I've actively worked on thinking about why did I fail and how can I mitigate those factors which made me fail. So my talk today is about enabling innovation in Europe. And the first question most people ask me is, why? Why would you want to enable innovation in Europe? And I think the technology is simply the driving force behind social change in our times. And you can't just ignore developments and complain about them. You need to create and shape technology. So I think the whole attitude that you often find also at places like here at the camp, that things like Web 2.0 is going to go away, I find is pretty much the same attitude that the general public has displayed towards the internet in the mid-90s. And I think even though there's a lot of buzzwords in marketing there really is something happening. Maybe it's not Web 2.0, but there is something happening that's changing our society through technology. And I think we need to shape this instead of just hoping it will go away. Nowadays, everyone can create technology that changes the world. Just think what happened with Napster. One simple piece of software disrupted a whole industry, multiple industries actually, and has had a really huge impact on the world. Just imagine what could have been different if some changes had been made to Napster, if it had been slightly different, had slightly taken a different approach. Maybe we would have less worries about the current copyright fights. It's really a matter of, if you create it, you can shape it. And this is happening everywhere, but it's not happening as much as it could in Europe. Most of the really simple ICT startups that we see these days don't require a lot of research. They are simple implementations of new concepts, making things easier for users. They are not really research. They are not, by any means, they are not computer science or very hackish. The interesting part about those things is they change the way we interact with our world, and many of them have a tendency to become more valuable to the user the more users it has. This means creating one of these platforms makes it easier to get more and more users, and you have user login, you have network effects, and basically these are really simple things. I mean, just think about it. Flickr is just storing photos and so on, and we're not seeing a lot of that happening in Europe actually. And thus I'm quoting from a report which is one of the core documents of the European Union from 2006 by the former Finnish Minister President Esko Aho. And it's saying Europe and its citizens should realize that their way of life is under threat, but also the path to prosperity for research and innovation is open if large-scale action is taken now by the leaders before it is too late. It sounds melodramatic, but it goes further. This society, averse to risk and reluctant to change, is in itself alarming, but it is also unsustainable in the face of rising competition from other parts of the world. So basically, this report is, this is a core document in the innovation policy of the European Union, and they are saying scary things. I don't know, maybe to scare us, but maybe they are going in the right direction, because changes often lag behind. So we are not seeing the effects yet of us losing technological connection to what's happening in the world. So what is happening on a government level in trying to make people like us, like you, to actually start startups and participate, because this is not just good for you, it's good for Europe and for also having our own mediums, having our own services that we use. Basically, they have something called Lisbon Goals, which in a simplified way says 3% of the GDP of the European Union in total and of its participating countries should go into research and development. 3% of the European Union's GDP, that means 3% of 11.6 trillion euros, which is the largest economy in the world. And on a local level, we're doing the same thing, funding, founder consulting. Basically, you go to your local economics board, and there you can ask for advice, and they give you a date where you can come there in 3 weeks, and they give you more advice. And you're sent around, and there's incubators, which is pretty much babysitting of founders, and they select projects they can understand, and technology parks. And all these Lisbon goals lead to, because now you have to spend more. It's an EU directive, you have to spend more. This leads to bigger spending. Bigger projects, more money into each project, because the more projects you have, the more administration and the more work you have. So they try to have really few projects. There have been absolutely no changes in making it easier to just get a little bit of cash, like 20,000 euros. And spending a lot of cash isn't hard, spending it well is. So how does that work for ICT, Information and Communication Technologies? ICT is the fastest growing industry, has a multiple history of creating the greatest growth of wealth in human history. Just think of Microsoft and Google. Is the least development segment of the European innovation landscape and requires almost no cash to start. You wouldn't have needed much cash to start Flickr, to start PayPal, or any of these. You could have gotten a prototype, and then you could have gotten more cash. So what this is saying, Europe performs worst in just those segments where you need the least money. Throwing cash at the problem probably works great for biotech. I wouldn't know, but it certainly doesn't work for ICT. And what's happening right now is Europe has a lot of cash. We are a huge economy. We throw more and more cash at the problem, but it won't work, because more cash means you need bigger chunks of cash to distribute, and there's even less small money for small startups which just are starting out. So what is needed? Founders need to be among entrepreneurial-minded peers. I will get to that later on. And founders need to be able to work on their projects without distraction. So what's really needed is focusing on the founders, not on spending 3% of the GDP. This is not a goal. This is something you would like to. You would like to spend sensically a huge amount of cash on research, but just spending it is not good enough. And running around for 4 to 10 months trying to come up with some base cash so you can work undisturbed in a small team for a few months is not unbureaucratic. And working while you are starting a company isn't good either, because your boss will distract you. Doing another project before a real project to finance your real idea is also just distraction. What you really want is to just work on your project, and to get money easily, you would have to need access to founders who understand your idea and are really unbureaucratic about it. But we haven't had anyone successful enough, or not enough of these people, to get money from them. There's a lot of public cash, but well, we don't get it because you really have to be convincing on a marketing level, and techies seldom are this. And ideas, if people who don't understand technology give the money to technologists, well, then they can check if the ideas will actually work or make sense. So the need to see more startups. We don't need more cash. We are not incapable of building big startups, but we're simply neglecting helping people who want to start startups and inspiring them to start startups on a very small level with no cash requirements at the beginning. And what this boils down to is that entrepreneurial success is socially transmitted. If you put people who have the mindset of the people here together at one place, you're going to see really huge results, because these people exchange and learn from each other. And the same thing is true of innovation and startups and anything that can change the world, because if you put those people together, they will learn from each other and become together more effective. So what's special about Silicon Valley is not the venture capital, not the contacts, and nothing of that stuff. It's that they have the people that can inspire other people to do great things. In Europe, we have great people too, but a lot fewer have started and gained experience in starting their own projects. And you're just a lot less likely to know someone who has succeeded big in technology. If you walk around in San Francisco, you are very likely to meet all the time successful entrepreneurs, and you have to have friends who can give information to you on how to do your own thing or give you feedback on your ideas. Also, it is really tough to find a space to meet, work, or do projects at. Because in Silicon Valley, most of these startups like HP, Google, Apple, and so on started in garages. So you have a moderate climate, you can just go into a garage and you can start working there, and even in winter you put up a small heating and you can work there. It's really easy, you have the people and you have the place to work, really cheaply. So this is why they have startups. But we can turn those disadvantages into an advantage. And one of these things we came up with in Vienna is the MetaLab, which you have seen down the road where the telephone booth is. And basically the MetaLab doesn't have that much to do with startups or innovation. It's just a place where people can do things. And if people come together and do things, they meet each other, can learn from each other, and so on. So the MetaLab is located in Vienna, in the government district, so this is right next to the city hall and parliament. And we are providing physical infrastructure for projects. This means rooms and equipment. So we have an electronics lab, machinery lab, chemistry lab, a main room, room for presentations, a lounge where you can relax, chill out, smoke, a library, a media room, and a bar in the kitchen. And, well, we have equipment there, also to pull people together and to help them run this place together with this. So electronics equipment, sensorics projects, robot construction projects, social software projects, brain science, all the stuff you see here at the camp basically. 3D printers, chemistry lab, cooking experiment, and we are cooking every Sunday in MetaLab. We're cooking, people are meeting and are